But let's kick into introductions. If you want to start,
sure.
We'll make some intros and we'll dig into it.
I'm Jonathan Karras. I lead communication at Levana. I'm just going to talk, just focus on myself, and if we could do just like little brief introductions on ourselves, and then we can go around and dive into our projects, if that format works for you guys. So I've been in the crypto space since 2016. I've been a technologist my whole life, as a script kiddie in the 90s, and I worked at Starkware and at a hedge fund, and I had some exits in the Web 2 space before that, and was came from the ashes of Terra, and just super excited to be building on Sei and to be a launch partner there. And I think there's never been a more meaningful time to be involved in crypto, from at least from my perspective. So, Simon, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Simon, building Eclipse. We were also building on Terra before, been in crypto since 2017. Been very focused on different fronts, mainly focused on like education in crypto, was helping to build the education for the Terra ecosystem. It was actually an initiative led by TFL that was we're making high quality videos for a lot of community projects, but also like just onboarding new users through like Seamless. So very like clued into the UI UX and the side which is like how to reach normies and how to communicate to normies and how to position narratives from that front. It's been a big 2 years, that's for sure. But very very excited to be building on Sei and seeing some excitement and some people coming in, and looking forward to building a really good ecosystem and growing crypto.
Very, very cool. Very cool. All right. All right. Koushik, you're up.
Maybe I could go first, and then Koushik can hop on. Yeah, so hi folks. This is Sanjeev, the founder and CEO of Leap, joining you from the Leap account. We are a non-custodial wallet for Sei and 50 other Cosmos chains. Happy to get into that in a bit. But in terms of my personal background, been involved in the crypto space loosely for the last 4 or 5 years now, but actively started building in 2021 when we sort of got a grant from TFL to build a wallet for Terra, and that sort of launched our product journey. So as I can tell, this is also a bit of a ex-Terra founders party right here. In terms of like my background before this, also spent a bunch of time in Web2 in different startups. Started my career at McKinsey, and then I also worked in a bunch of operations, marketing, and product roles. But all these at primarily in consumer startups. So cut my teeth there, figuring out how to build great quality consumer experiences and trying to bring some of those insights and learnings into like the wallet space here.
That's so funny. You and I have known each other for what, like 2.5 years now. I had no idea that you were at McKinsey. What did you do there?
You won't believe it. It was as far away from here as it can be, but I used to work in like oil and gas for a bit, and then like heavy industries for a little bit. But realized soon enough that my heart was in software tech is what drew me. So yeah, that was a pretty short stint, and then I moved on to like startups.
Very nice, very nice. So let's go into the reverse order. And feel free to take the. I have a tendency to hog the microphone, so I apologize in advance, and feel free anybody to just cut me off. But the Sanjeev, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is unique about Leap? And why would a user on Sei want to use your wallet versus maybe Kepler or some of the other ones?
Sure. Happy to do that. Before that, though, I just want to also say that we have Koushik also on the call, who Koushik leads growth for us, and he's been championing a lot of our Sei efforts. So he'll also be popping in from time to time. But yeah, just to maybe introduce Leap itself for those not familiar with it. So Leap, as I mentioned before, we are a non-custodial crypto wallet for Sei and close to about 50 other Cosmos chains. As it stands today, we've actually built out 4 different wallet products, which includes the browser extension, which is the first product we went live with. But we also have native iOS and Android mobile wallets. And we also have like a web dashboard, which is a bit of a zapper for the space, if you will. And our general sort of aim with Leap has been to build a super wallet for the ecosystems that we're building on. So in this case, with Sei, the idea is for us to build a one-stop gateway for all on-chain transactions and activities on Sei. And so what that means is that as an end user, we want people to be able to natively, within a single wallet experience, be able to manage their portfolio, send tokens, stake, access DeFi opportunities, access NFTs, and all of the and a bunch of like on-chain experiences, but through a single base layer of experiences that we've building out, as well as dApps whose experiences we are natively integrating into the wallet. Right? So that's a little bit of the approach sort of we take to building wallets. In terms of to your second point about like Leap versus like some of the other wallets in the space, particularly let's say Kepler. So as we started building out in the space, we realized a few opportunities and sort of white spaces, so to speak, here, and that's sort of also been how we focus more on, and we've sort of made our differentiators. But broadly, I'd say like three, if I can capture them within 3 points. The first would be the fact that we've actually natively integrating chains. So right now, as I mentioned, we support 50 chains. And what this means is that we've worked very of our wallet is fully tested and functional across all of our products for all these chains, right? And I think Sei is one of the best examples of how we work with projects where we started working with Sei pretty much since when they were in DevNet, worked through like different multiple test nets. And our whole approach has been, let's give the community of these chains the best world-class wallet experience from the word go, right? And I think that sort of is something that people have really appreciated. The second thing that we've noticed as a gap and really focused on is mobile support. So one thing we all felt is that in Cosmos, particularly, mobile experiences are nowhere at par with desktop. Whereas in reality, you have a big percentage of your community which is still like mobile first. And so we've not only ensured that our mobile apps are at feature parity with the extension, but we've also built out mobile specific features. Right, so we have, for example, instant push notifications for on-chain activity. If you have the Deeps app installed, that's something people love. And I think another feature we recently shipped that's gotten great attention is an in-app browser, which allows people to access, in this context, any Sei app can now be permissionlessly accessed from your phone. Right, so that's something we've seen like great feedback on. And finally, and there's something that we can get to a little bit later in the chat as well. Something that we'd love to do for Sei, and we've already started doing this, is native integrations, which means that we want to reduce the number of times you need to get out of your wallet to do important on-chain transactions. And so we began this for Sei by actually integrating a faucet within the wallet itself. And so now when you're in Leap Cosmos and when you switch to Sei, you just have to click one button, go through a CAPTCHA, and you just have like faucet tokens captured right away. Right, that's sort of like a small template of the sort of experiences that we want to build, by integrating DEXs, integrating NFT experiences, perps protocol. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do here that we'd love to focus on as we go. So yeah, that's not very short, but hopefully a good summary of Leap and what we're building here.
That's great. So Simon, you're up. Talk to us about Eclipse. What separates you from some of the competitors? Why did you choose to build on Sei? And who tell us about your target audience.
Yeah, I might try to keep it short because I can also hog the microphone and talk and ramble for a long time. But really, Eclipse is quite an exciting one because for us, we, being in the space and talking to a lot of projects and talking to a lot of customers, and also being in the space for a long time, really identified some big needs, especially around go-to-market and token launches. So in the space, typically and it's actually, this is going to be a little bit of alpha. We're actually going to be rebranding from Pad to Fi very soon. So it'll be Eclipse Fi as opposed to Eclipse Pad. Part of that is to do with trying to separate ourselves from maybe a negative stigma that launchpads have gotten in the space, as they've typically been very short-term sighted, where the money in the launchpads has been really focused on flipping projects and being very short-term focused, as opposed to building a primitive that is longer term focused on launching tokens. And I mean, there's exceptions to the rule. There's platforms that have been around for a long time, but we really wanted to create like a solution that focuses on go to market, bootstrapping, and token launches. That isn't just about the token launch, obviously. We also identified that there's a lot of these IDO launch pads that just offer one mechanism to projects to launch, which is okay, do a token sale, launch at a low float, pump the price. People get kind of rich in the short term, but then the token bleeds out over time. But we see other needs to support projects when they're launching. Like if you're launching a perps protocol, you really need to bootstrap liquidity, right? You need to have some liquidity to be on the platform, which we think is huge. And there's also other things that come with a launch, like supporting in many areas of community building and market makers, etc. But the big thing that we kind of the direction that we decided to kind of go in is to build out a more modular launch platform. And so instead of just offering one mechanism like an IDO, the concept is to build out multiple different launch mechanisms and different flows where projects can come in and go, hey, we've got different needs to project A. We're project B, we have different needs. We need to attract TVL. We don't want to set a price. We want to find price discovery. And because they've got different needs, we want to be able to offer different needs to projects. So really looking to build customizable flows, like bringing in different types of auctions, liquidity bootstrapping auctions, lock drops, LBPs, IDOs in the one place where projects can customize their flow. On top of that, we really want to build out a platform that enables for innovation of token launch mechanisms as well, which is something that I really got inspired about on Terra. It was really cool to see different kind of people playing around with different types of launch mechanisms like Prism Forge and the lock drop and LBA that Delphi pioneered, and Pylon protocol, etc. So we want to take some of that essence and we want to build that into a platform that enables for experimentation, research, and development of different launch mechanisms within the community, within the DAO, and that's really the direction we want to go in. And the reason why we chose, Sei, we were originally building on Cosmos and Code, and there was some struggles around liquidity and marketing and stuff in the ecosystem, attracting new users in, and not too many projects. When you're building a launch platform, you want a big influx of high quality projects. There was a lot of chains, but in terms of dApps and stuff, there wasn't too much. And when talking to the Sei team, we saw kind of the vision for bringing in a lot of liquidity, a lot of VCs, and a lot of projects into the ecosystem, and we saw an opportunity to kind of position as a launch pad for Sei, where we could not only launch tokens but help to bootstrap liquidity for projects, and help kind of create an ecosystem and build out an ecosystem and bring in more attention from the rest of the crypto space. And so it's been a really good move, seeing a lot of excitement, a lot of traction, a lot of projects and really high quality builders. And we're excited to be serving that.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. I have so many questions, but before I jump in and to ask you some questions, I'll just give a little bit of background on Levana. So Levana was originally a Terra project as well, moved to the greater Cosmos ecosystem, built as a dApp from the ground up in Rust on Cosmwasm. We ended up falling in love with Sei really because there's so much signals around what we were looking for in terms of community. The first of all, the fact that it's a permissionless network was something that was very important to us. That when you have a permissionless network, so instead of there being a few gatekeepers that can decide whether or not two apps can live on the same chain, and they get to really king make as opposed to the free market and innovation, and the consumers or users deciding what's the best product. I think that the transition from the app thesis, which was predominant in Cosmos, from let's say 2016 when the white paper first came out till up, I'd say until a year ago, and this transition to an ecosystem has been a rocky road for Cosmos in general. And I think that the the advantage that Sei has is kind of coming out of the box with a very clear narrative of saying this is going to be a trader's chain. This is going to be a chain that is permissionless, that comes with a lot of the default primitives, that knows how to communicate and build a narrative and a community around that. Those are the places that tend to attract the highest quality projects and the most amount of innovation. And I think that what Levana does is we are a perpetual swap similar to GMX. Levana is an acronym for leverage any asset. And we have a number of improvements over the GMX model and definitely over the constant product model. We have a few blog posts about that. And we are a little bit easier, or I would say a lot easier, in terms of launching new markets because we are peer to pool, meaning that there's no order book. So while we have at the same time advanced trading features like limit orders, stop losses, 30x long and short leverage trading, automated take profits, robust API access, and a lot of other bells and whistles under the hood, we overcome a lot of the chicken and the egg associated with launching new markets through some of the innovative economic designs that have come into the system. And so we're really excited to be a launch partner with Sei and to be able to help in bootstrapping liquidity into the network. We just we're excited to work with the Wormhole team and to integrate the bridging on a direct app basis, just to lower the friction and create a good user experience. And we're also excited to work with the Leap team. We've been working with the Leap team now for, it's probably been about 3 months. And, we found it just a pleasure. Their professionalism, the QA, the quality assurance, their developer support has just been a pleasure. And then all of the brainstorming around everything, that Sanjeev talked about, like, for example, having native app integration. Like, could you imagine if you had ETH in your Leap wallet and there was just a slider bar to leverage up your ETH, or to click one button and then start single-sided staking and earn double-digit percentages for being a liquidity provider. There's just so much types of opportunities that when you have really talented teams that are so excited to work together. I see we have Lady Sky wanted to come up and speak. I'm just gonna it's a little bit of the Wild West, but there you go. And I don't know. Maybe we'll take questions later, actually. But Simon, I have a question to you also. Just we were talking in the chat on Levana's Discord about the ideal methodology for token distribution on new projects. And there's always this kind of this tension and back and forth between airdrops and the values of airdrops to build a new community, and the difficulties around liquidity. And I know this is something that you put a lot of thought into, coming from the background of building a launch pad. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as to really how do you balance these kind of desires, the desire to have a broad distribution, the desire to build up the biggest community, and then also to to prevent kind of that farm and dump mentality, which really kind of plagues the crypto industry.
The one thing, to answer that is an interesting nuance, because I think the issue is that we tend to basket token launches into one basket when every project has very, very different needs for what they need, right? That's definitely an interesting thing. I actually personally really like some of the mechanisms that DeFi brought out with the LBAs and the lock drops, but that's not suited to everybody, right? Lock drop, for example, is a great mechanism for locking TVL if you're building a platform that relies like a lending market or perps. But if you're not a massive project, you need to launch a token. A lock drop might not be suited, because if you're not a giant project that has the ability to draw in all of that liquidity, you run risks of having that lock drop not doing well. And if the lock drop doesn't do well, then your mechanisms kind of balance out. But if you can kind of like generate a lot of like that hype and pre-traction and get some whales around stuff, a lock drop can be a great way to align incentives of like users of the platform that want to that actually provide liquidity or value to the platform are getting the tokens. The LBA is a really interesting auction mechanism that I like.
Can I pause you for a second? Can you kind of explain a little bit of the mechanism? Because I'm not sure that all of our listeners are familiar with it.
Sorry. So a lock drop's a mechanism where you reward users for performing a specific action that adds value or liquidity to the platform. So like what happened on Terra, for example, Mars protocol bootstrapped like liquidity for UST lending, right? So users would deposit UST for a certain period of time. Usually the longer they deposit the UST, they lock the UST in the protocol for, the higher share of tokens they get. So they receive a pool of tokens that's allocated to that lock drop, right? And users can receive those tokens based on the value add. So Astroport was a good example. So they did a vampire attack on TerraSwap, which was like if you move your liquidity or your liquidity positions from TerraSwap to Astroport and lock them in for a period of time, you'll receive a share of these rewards. So you're actually aligning token reward incentives with a behavior that is beneficial to the platform longer term. Are you going to get people that abuse that? For sure, but typically the people that lock their incentives are going to be more users of the platform or provide liquidity. The second stage that DeFi came up, and keep in mind this is how Neutron is currently launching, was the LBA, liquidity bootstrapping auction. Now they've called it, I think it's a liquidity auction, liquid auction. They've just shortened it to Neutron, which I think is better. And that's an auction mechanism that creates a ratio between two assets in a pool. So users that participated in a lock drop or the airdrop in the first phase can lock their tokens from that into one half of the auction, and on the other half, people can deposit like USDC, right? And then the price is determined in a liquidity pool by the balance of USDC and the other token in the pool. So that's really cool because it enables to kind of create price discovery. People can have a second chance to add more value to the platform, and it enables to lock a deep liquidity pool on launch for this platform. Now, one of the issues that happens, and I think that happened maybe with Astroport that I noticed, was that the problem with this mechanism by itself is that community price discovery is great, but when FOMO kicks in, I think it's very hard to keep a level on things. So when FOMO kicks in, you can get crazy valuations and price discovery, right? And you see this with LBPs a little bit. If everybody is like super hyped about a project, sometimes the price discovery, the community price discovery is a lot higher than maybe it should be. So I shouldn't go too much detail on this, but we've kind of like thought about some different tweaks that can be done to kind of keep the launch valuations into kind of more reasonable ranges and balance incentives. But the idea is like, really, if you dig into the concept and what we want to really do is not just have one mechanism, but how do we start to like, how do we take an auction model and how do we add different things? How do we like play with new experimental models for launching that kind of that make sure there's enough float on launch, which means make sure there's enough like supply and on the market on launch, so we don't get crazy pump and dumps. How do you align incentives to make sure that you don't just get speculators or flippers that are there to kind of dump the token as soon as it launches? And how to ensure there's deep liquidity. And these are kind of some things that like, I think there's a few different ways to solve it. It's different for each project. But I think playing around with these launch models and starting to kind of innovate on launches is a step in the right direction. And we want to keep doing that. We want to bring in brains that like really start thinking about this stuff a lot more and have open debates and discussions exactly as what we're doing now about launch mechanisms.
Yeah, it's, Levana is a Delphi Labs project as well. And we're very familiar with the lock drop mechanism, the LBA. We have built a lock drop, which we will intend probably about a month after launch to use to grow the long-term protocol liquidity. And it's definitely got its advantages and disadvantages. I think it's underutilized in the industry, but I think that in general, from a high level, what projects or protocols always need to do is to figure out how to create long-term time preferences amongst the community. Because one of the things that there's a tendency for lots of projects is if you distribute too large of tokens, of governance tokens, to a community that doesn't understand the benefit of owning those tokens, then and there's very low float, then the sale, it could even be the sale of a few hundreds of thousands of tokens, can push price discovery so low that then the ongoing economics of farming, of reward mechanisms, of incentivizations around governance break down, because really the only thing that a project has to the levers that you have to pull in the early stages are the tokens themselves, and uh, the difference between a you guys can't see where I'm waving my hands, but a token that is down here with the incentives that it can provide, or that's up here, can be the difference between whether or not the protocol can ever achieve um, that escape velocity to allow it to go into orbit and then achieve sustainability. So it's almost like, in your attempt to market yourself or to build a large community, if you're too if you're overly uh, I guess loose with distribution, especially the timing of the distribution, you can end up killing the economics incentives that would have allowed you to achieve sustainability in the long run in general.
Yeah, fully agree. And I want to touch on something else you said. It's like you built your own lock drop and it's underutilized. Like what we see, and I was talking to Delphi about this a fair bit. It's like the lock drop in LBA is a great mechanism, but a lot of times there's been no one to facilitate these in terms of like teams. Only teams that have used them have teams that are big enough to build their mechanism themselves or to kind of implement their own launches. And doing your own launches is definitely a hard thing to do, right? So having someone that can facilitate that, and I think besides that, it's not just the mechanism. There's so much that goes into a successful launch behind the scenes, right? From the market makers you use to the, do you have the good PR, right, to build up the launch? Do you have the right community leaders around, right? Do you have the right narrative, the right vision? There's so much other stuff that goes around it to at least support post-launch. So it's not just to a token price go up, right? But it's actually like a successful launch, which is you're using that time period, which is your greatest asset, to reach the most number of people and get people excited about your vision. So if you can really align all these other things and all the support and everything that goes into it, alongside a good mechanism, deep liquidity, fair distribution, that's your best chance of ever, the first chance, the biggest chance that you have to kind of generate community traction, right? So I think this is why what we're doing is exciting, and I think well needed. It's not just bringing new mechanisms, but also how can we kind of create a standard for launches and support and help guide projects through that process so that we're getting longest term successful projects as opposed to flashes in the pan, which is inevitable. Not all projects can succeed, but if you set a good foundation, I think it's so much easier to succeed if a project has a good start and attracts good TVL, good liquidity, and good community than if they don't, for sure.
Absolutely, and I'd love to hear from the Leap team just thoughts about token launches. I know there's no, there. I haven't seen any plans or signaling. It's very for a token necessarily, so I don't want to imply that. But I'm curious of thoughts of what's from your team as a project, how you think about how tokens and wallets interact. If they do, I know we've all heard the rumors of the MetaMask, token launch, and various farming activities and stuff associated with that. And then also, what is a wallet's opportunity or responsibility to participate in the early distribution of a token for a project? So, Sanjeev, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think a very, very, very interesting listening to both of you speak about this. To be very honest here, there is honestly not, usually the way wallets have sort of come into the picture is typically that the journey starts off once somebody typically has an airdrop, and then that's when the journey for you wanting to come in, claim that airdrop, and then sort of start using the wallet is probably is one paradigm that we've seen typically. What we've seen, for example, in the Sei context, let's say, is an interesting model where the entire sort of partnership with Blocked and all of the testnet campaigns that have happened. And I know again, I'm not talking about the token launch itself, but I'm just talking more about how, let's say, wallets would be used in the sort of run up to the token launch, in the run up to the airdrop. I think that's actually for us been a very interesting experience. It's again not something that we've seen happen with other chains as much, but we've actually seen our wallet get extensively tested in the last 2 months. And when I say extensively, it has literally been a tsunami of users that we've gotten across every single form factor we can think of, like all three: our browser extension, our mobile apps, people trying them on different OSs. And then again, keep in mind that when token launches happen, you in most scenarios in crypto, you're talking about users who are actually going to be using your product across the world, going to be using across different sorts of OSs, different devices. And so we found that in sort of this model, particularly of the sort of usage that we've seen, the sort of feedback we've gotten, it's really allowed us to polish a lot of the wallet experience. It's allowed us to think about different scenarios. It's allowed us to think about, okay, what happens if people want to add custom tokens to their to a wallet if that doesn't already sort of show up. We've basically been able to test so many of these scenarios. So I think that's been certainly something which is novel that we've seen here. Does that sort of answer your question, Dan?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and it's also very challenging that the position that you're in. I think it's interesting. I guess the point of discovery, as you mentioned it, is that you almost exist kind of later in the narrative, in a general sense speaking.
Yeah, but just to add on to what Sanjay was mentioning, if we take a specific example, I think there's still definitely scope for improving the user experience throughout the entire journey. If it is some example that Simon has shared, if you take lot drop model or LBS, this always comes with some deadlines and phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And right now, all of these are manually tracked by users, but we could build an experience where most of these, we send alerts to user whenever a new phase opens up or new lot drop opens up, etc. I think that we can definitely play around with the user experience and make it much better. And I think wallet can play a good, better role there. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. So I have a question for everybody, which is, how have you been getting your community ready for the upcoming Say launch? How have you found educating people? How many, how is even just ramping up your own infrastructure in terms of moderators, community support, customer support, ticketing, QA bugs? Just what's been the process of getting ready for this upcoming launch, and really going for, a lot of us. I know at Levana we went from, I think it was 4 months of being of comms turned off, Discord turned off, and then very quickly embracing the Say community, and then watching things really take off much more quickly and much stronger than we had ever anticipated. So I'll answer at the end, but Simon, I'd love to hear. I know that you've went through a similar experience, so please tell us what's that been like, because I know, when we've spoken off camera, you're wearing about 30 different hats right now.
Delightfully chaotic is the word, but It's coming together. Like, look, it's doing a lot of things at once, right? Inside the team, like, going through a fundraising round as well as like building product and a community and everything. We've been lucky to have some incredible long-term like supporters that have been around for quite a long time. They've just really jumped in to help out because we didn't have any like really hired community moderators. Just kind of supporters that have been around for like since last year. And we built it before the boom started. We built an ambassador program as well. And we didn't get a chance to really test that at scale. And so when everything ramped up, it kind of started to break a bit because we'd set up all these systems and we expected it to kind of like grow organically and slowly and test over times. And instead we ended up with, 100,000 in the Discord within a couple of weeks, right? And so that really strained like all the ambassador program that we built. And also like it was really hard to manage. We really like I wasn't able, I was in the Discord grinding when I was trying to do like so many other things that need to be done to get things off the ground. And so like it was just really like amazing to see people really step up in the community, ambassadors and members of the community start to like really take over and help to manage the Discord. It was actually crazy. Like there was times where I wasn't in the Discord for like, a day and things would actually, things were falling apart, but they were getting managed because people would like just step up to just help manage it. And I think that was incredible. And now we've been really focused on being able to kind of put the systems in place. We're going through like hiring, the raise is going really well. So things are coming together and we're actually able to build out these systems and more we'll be able to kind of create these systems for like managing the community better. And we still have a lot of ammo in terms of like putting fuel on the fire in terms of PR, marketing, campaigns, collaborations, which we just did not have the capacity to manage. But now that we're kind of putting together more baseline, we can manage it. So yeah.
Very nice. Koushik, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it has been similar experience for us as well. Again, luckily for us too, we had incredible initial base who have always been supporting us, who stepped up in these times to manage the community, structure our Discord, etc. So shout out to Steve if he's around in this call, who has stepped up to this position and currently managing our community. And other parties like Sanjeev mentioned, most of our conversations has been around product feedback, raising birds. So that helped us polish our product to the dot. And so our focus initially has been around setting up the feedback loops, closing the tickets that are raised, setting up these systems. But I think now it's quite streamlined, and we are now focusing on the marketing and increasing the number of content pieces, collaboration pieces that we put out. So I think the initial 2 weeks has been, like Sanju mentioned, it's a tsunami, but that helped us build more robust process and system right now.
That's awesome. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in here with like a tactical idea that I don't know, Simon and Jonathan, if you're going to find interesting. But you know how with like the whole chat GPT stuff that happened in the last couple of months, people have actually been trying to build like different chat bots with it. So it's like this is a small experiment that we're trying to do where there's this product called Chatbase. I'm happy to send over a link to both of you if that helps. But essentially what it does is that you can train a bunch of like, bunch of documents into it. Some of these can be public or some of these can also be like private documents that you send. And it sort of like sets up a chatbot for you. And the quality of these is like, significantly better than the sort of chatbots that we typically imagine, right? The sort of the stuff that you see on your banking website and you get frustrated by. It's definitely like, much, much better quality than that. So that's something that we've been playing around with a little bit. We'll probably launch that on our website. And if it works, we'll see if there's a way to integrate that into some of our other community channels as well. But essentially, like, the idea is you could sort of put together all your common questions. You could put together a bunch of information about, say, all in one place. And then sort of like, have this be that first level of interaction with your community is how we've sort of been thinking about it.
So it's funny that you mention the chatbot. So we are working, I forget the name of the company, but please send me on Telegram the company that you're working with. So we added a chatbot and we found that it answers some questions really, really well, but other things, it just lies. Like it even goes to the extent where it will make up URLs that look like they're URLs. It's so desperate to be helpful that it will give false information. So we try and curtail it and improve it, but it definitely, it's definitely experimental. And as for GPT in general, and I started using Bard and we're big Midjourney fans. It it's I think it's currently our head of content is just GPT, full stop. It's just such a helpful tool. I can't imagine anybody trying to build a product today that isn't putting significant effort into to learn prompt engineering. So I want to jump in. I'll answer the question also. We were completely unprepared for the growth. We've put a lot of it's been an incredible amount of help from the mods, old friends that have been around for 2.5 years, that really came in just as MVPs and kept things from collapsing and falling apart, and some new faces of people that jumped in and just continued to be helpful. There at Levana, there's a loose uh, upgrading schedule or ambassador system, which is definitely being improved upon. Right now, we have about 65 formal submissions for being moderators, where people put in the times a day that they could commit to, and various other things. I think my day tomorrow, I have got either 10 or 15 different back-to-back interviews. So it's a little overwhelming even to just get to meet all of these people and to understand what their interests are. But it's going to take time. We added some just light lift things. We've got a level 4 where if you level up through being helpful in the chat, so then you get your first entrance into a secret chat. So if you haven't checked out the Levana Discord, you should definitely check that out. And we'll be launching our first program hopefully next week, where we'll be launching a trading competition with real world prizes, and that will be exclusive to the members of the level 4. So it's little things like that we're experimenting with, onboarding new mods, creating leveled structure, using filters, and trying to have a healthy hygiene in terms of channels, so that the Good Morning armies and the Sei airdrop hunters are moved out of the general conversation, and then just trying to build a community and personality and strive to inspire meaningful conversation, which sometimes is means disagreeing. Where not everybody's going to disagree, and then combating with bots. I'm curious to hear from both of your teams. What has been the experience just with bots joining the server, bots making meaningless noise, um, and if you've had any tactics or any success of segregating the bots from the humans that want to have more meaningful conversation. Simon, any thoughts about that?
We haven't had too many, actually. I mean, so the team might be able to answer that more because they're more active in the chat. We had a lot of porn bots, nude ones, but I don't think I've seen as many as I've heard about. Maybe in the Sei Discord, I think they're getting smashed with kind of copy bots. I mean, you do get some basic ones, but I don't think it's been too bad. I could be wrong on that. The mod team might correct me later and be like, we're getting hammered by bots. But yeah, I mean, there's some solutions like human node and stuff to do proof of verification, liveness and stuff. I know that might rub some people the wrong way, but that's potentially a strategy, like the bot basher. It's kind of hard to find that balance because a lot of Discord users, if you're trying to attract in DeFi traders or ETH guys, they're not going to KYC to jump into a Discord, I don't think. So yeah, it's a funny balance, but I think things after launch may settle down a little bit from that front, and so maybe become more manageable from a bot perspective.
That's great. And so, what about you, Sanjeev? How have you guys been dealing with bots or making meaningful conversation within the Discord?
Right, I'll take that. For us, actually, the growth on Discord hasn't been as much because we haven't deliberately exposed it as much. Like we're just preparing, researching our server, setting up the team, etc. And the idea is that I think post-launch, once we know, the initial set of folks who are just looking for airdrops or away, we can start growing it again back, either organically or through some campaigns. So right now, most of our conversation on Discord is related to product, understanding more features there, etc. And there is a small group which we always had with us who continue to discuss about interesting features that we are going to build or anything specific that they find within other Cosmos chains or say. So those discussions continue to happen while the explosive growth didn't happen on Discord yet. We tried to restrict to only Twitter so far.
That makes a lot of sense. So after we're rapidly approaching launch, and we're rapidly approaching an hour on this AMA, so I'll try and keep things pushing forward. But we're rapidly approaching launch, so I think it's time to start also looking beyond launch. So tell me, what does 6 months out Leap look like? What does 6 months out Eclipse look like?
Yeah, maybe I can go first.
Go for it.
And probably this is an alpha drop in this Twitter space. But given say ecosystem and the way the community has been built and that ecosystem of dApps that are coming in, insanely what we realized is the more we started working with the dApps that are building during this test network, the more we realize if like Sanjeev mentioned, our goal for wallet is to provide the best experience possible, right? So in order to achieve that goal, what is required is a native Sei wallet. So that's what we actually be building, and probably today or tomorrow is when we'll announce it. So we're actually building as a brand and a native Sei wallet, Sei only specific focused wallet, right? And everything else in terms of native integrations we want to do with Sei DXS or Sei POPs like Levana, etc. So that's one key thing that is going to happen. Launch the Sei native wallet. It will first launch as an extension. Then I think in the next 6 months we will definitely launch our mobile app as well for this particular new wallet, and quite a lot of native integrations. It will be part of the whole thing, and notifications is another big key feature that we want to focus, especially for the say DeFi and NFT projects. So more or less, I think in summary, it would be like whatever it would take to build the best wallet experience on Sei. That's what our focus is going to look like.
That's great. So I see here there's Simon, you want to talk about your roadmap?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've got launch for the platform. When I really start, I mean, we've done a lot of headway on BD front. Like BD's been a really really heavy front. We've built a lot of really good relationships. We've tentatively brought on someone to like lead Web 2. Like we've got a very decent connection into the Web 2 space in terms of projects that want to integrate blockchain as part of their companies, like already very successful companies. So I feel like that over the next couple of months is something that we'll start like early stages at. But from the Eclipse platform on Sei, the big focus is building out a couple of these like models. So building out like the more custom liquidity bootstrapping auctions, bringing in like different types of auctions like Dutch auctions and various modules, which will be cool. So we'll be bringing like a variety of different launches, and then we want to start like potentially launching some chains on top of Sei, right? So we've always been talking with a fair few chains for launches. There's obviously like now Stream Swap on Osmosis, but we've also talked to a lot of chains that may be interested to launch on Sei if there's enough liquidity. So that's really on our scope to really like be reaching outside of Sei, but also bringing that value to Sei, right? So launching Sei projects, top Sei projects, but then also branching out of Sei, but that's still bringing value to Sei, if that makes sense. So they're kind of our main like focuses over the next 6 months, but like scaling up the business development and all that sort of stuff is a big focus for us.
That's great. And in terms of Levana, so we will be launching initially with a Bitcoin and Ethereum market. We'll be adding popular coins like Atom, and then we're excited to really expand the feature set, to add membership cards through NFT integration, to add more focus on the onboarding, to make a I'd call it exploratory and entertaining onboarding to be able to attract a new audience. I think that it's important that you make things fun and you inspire people's curiosity to get them to try new things like decentralized finance, and especially things like leverage trading, which can be confusing and intimidating to a lot of people. So I think that there's going to be a lot of experimentation. There will also be the launch of the Levana DAO. As I mentioned before, there will be the lock drop to bootstrap liquidity for large markets. There's to help solve that chicken and the egg. And in general, there will be a lot of focus on community feedback as how to make the product better. And then a big focus with the help of the Leap team on our mobile native experience. That's something that I think is going to play a strong role in really solidifying Levana as the cornerstone perpetual swap for the Sei ecosystem. I know we're a little bit we're coming to the end of the chat here, so I do want to open up the conversation if there's any questions that might come from the community here. So if anybody wants to just come up and ask a question or to write a question in the comments here, happy to. I'm just looking through them to see if anybody has typed anything. I see that that Domindomido.tori said, Levana, will they have their own token? So there will be a Levana token. It'll be a governance token that will control the various elements of the exchange. The ticker is LVN. You saw that Levana testnet uses ETH for testing. That's true. And is it possible that Levana will have a partnership to bridge from EVM? So we're actually working on integrating with Wormhole, and the goal is to have a native integration with Wormhole. So you would be able to bridge directly into your Levana leverage account. But that's still a work in progress. If there's anybody else that wants to come on or ask questions, we're here listening. Or if there's anything else, we had for a brief second there. It looked like we had somebody.
I've just invited. So we got Sei Latam wanting to jump out. Latam America, I think it is. So yeah.
Oh, go for it. So, hola, mi amigo. I think I can't hear you. I don't know if anybody else can hear him.
Does Sei Latam want to speak? Latino America? Okay, maybe not.
Okay, yeah, sometimes people just...
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, no, I just want to ask a simple question. Where do you see Levana in 2 years?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that Levana will have launched a successful perpetual swap platform, will have launched a successful onboarding and engagement and retention program, and expanded to many markets, created a permissionless leverage market launching protocol. Levana is an acronym for leverage any asset. So something like how anybody can launch a new market on Uniswap. So the ability to do that in a permissionless fashion safely. There will be a strong community focused around the Levana DAO. There will be structured products for interesting things like market neutral farming, or removing impermanent loss from your AMM positions. I'm a big believer in the long-term strength around GameFi. So I think there's an opportunity in the next market cycle to really build a consumer-facing product within the GameFi space, on top of a successful perpetual swap platform that's achieving consistent real yield. So I'd like to see that in the roadmap. and I think a focus on partnerships with other protocols. We've been talking to the guys at Krypton. We've been talking about integrations directly into Leap. We're probably, the timing won't work out for the liquidity bootstrapping and the auction with Eclipse, but there's potential down the line as the products grow for direct collaboration there. So I think that Levana's goal is to be the most have the most amount of users of any product on Sei, to have the most amount of total value locked, and to be able to offer the best yields. And I think that focusing on that goal and following really the timing and the needs of the market, and try not to build too far ahead, but also try to always be innovative, that as long as we can find that right balance, then Levana, please God, will have a very successful future.
I think that's a really good point, that last point that you added. And I think many of us were kind of guilty on this on Terra or different kind of things. It's so easy, especially when the bull market hits, to want to kind of do it all at once, right? And do it all now, when sometimes it's just like building the building blocks, having the bigger vision, but building the building blocks. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. And I would be guilty of like trying to take on too much at once and try to get everything done like quicker, but it's just kind of getting the basics done out and then like building from that.
Yep. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. So if
let's wrap up.
Yeah, I think we're good to wrap up. We're at the hour and 5 minute mark. The community has been so gracious to listen to us. If anybody has any closing remarks, I would say speak now or forever hold your peace, or until the next AMA. And why don't we all just give a short plug of where you can go to find more information about our various platforms. So if I want to know more about Eclipse, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, we've got a couple Notion docs, which are useful. If you head over into our Discord, so if you go into like the link in our bio, you can join our Discord. They're verified, and then under official links, you'll find like lots of reading materials about Eclipse, which is definitely beneficial. And we're gonna have a lot more coming soon. We've got a lot of like really cool material that's not too far off. So as we scale up, we're able to actually put more stuff out. So yeah, jump in the Discord, jump in the Telegram, follow us on Twitter, keep up to date, and you'll be seeing a lot more of us soon. So
awesome. That's great. And what about from the Leap team? If we want to learn more about Leap, how do we do that?
Twitter is the best place. Follow us on Twitter, and also stay tuned. I think the next half an hour we have a big announcement to make. But yeah, Twitter so far right now.
Excellent. And if you want to follow Levana, the best way to do that is to follow our Twitter, to jump into our Discord, to go to our blog.levana.finance, and to play with the beta app on Sei. And we're super excited to launch. And I think with that, we can call it a do.
See you later, guys. Awesome having you guys on the space. We look forward to doing some more of these spaces, and just very excited to build a really cool community. I think we're in a good place for it. So let's have a big month.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Great being here. Thank you so much for the great hosting. And yeah, let's definitely do more of these after the launch.
Yeah, thanks for having me.